guys, got this in the mail today. We're going to get her opened up and see what's in it. We're going to be taking it apart and looking at what all's inside and how to dismantle it. So here we go. Whoa, we got a P3 here. And actually, it's an old cast P3. So we're going to be looking at everything about a P3 today. We're going to look at how to take it apart. I'm going to explain the bells, how it works, just everything about the horn. I'm going to try to make this more of a beginner video. I have a lot of people that ask me just real beginner questions about these horns, so I figured let's make one to answer all these questions. So first off, there's old cast and new cast P horns. The way you can tell is on an old cast horn, this being an old cast, you're going to have patent pending on the sides of the bells. If it just says pat pinned, that's a new cast. Another way you can tell, which this isn't the best way to tell because back caps can be swapped, is your old cast back caps are going to have double Nathans, whereas your new cast horns are going to have single Nathan on them. See, this is a new cast P5. There's a single Nathan back cap. Now this is a double Nathan. This is still a new cast bell. That's just how this horn was set up, so I went with it. I didn't have another single Nathan back cap. But on these bells, it says pat pinned, new cast. Pat pending, old cast. Also, the flares vary a little on the bells, but we're not going to get into that today. So that's new cast versus old cast. New cast sounds better. I'm sorry, old cast sounds better. To me personally, new cast still sounds great, but a lot of people would say that old cast horns sound better. All right, so looking at the P3, this is a P3 that's on a gull wing mount. Your standard P3 has bells 1, 2, and 4. This mount is also used for a P5. It's missing bells 3 and 5. So if you wanted to make it a P5, you could add bells 3 and 5 to be a P5. There's also a low profile P horn manifold. The red and black new cast horn I had out a minute ago is on a low mount manifold. So it has to be 5 bells. So there's also a 3 chime low mount manifold too. I've got one of those over there. So anyway, looking at this horn, what holds it together is you've got these sets of bolts right here and then here. These bolts run all the way through the manifold. So these bolts hold on your blanking plate and your number 1 bell. On a P5 it would hold on 2 bells. Your middle just holds on the number 4. So to get these off, I use a 14mm socket. So just put it on there, hold the bottom of the nut with adjustable wrench is how I do it, and it just comes straight off. So I'm not going to make you watch me take it apart, so I will be right back and we'll get back to it. Alright, so we got it apart. So P horns are real simple. Honestly, all of them are. Your Leslie's get a little bit more crazy, but you've got your number 2 bell here, you've got a number 4 here, and a number 1. With the P horns, there is a cork gasket that is in between the foot and the manifold. That seals everything up. Whereas on a K bell, on the foot, you have rubber O-ring. So that's another difference between a P and a K. So you need these cork gaskets. So if you're ever buying one, make sure it's got good gaskets or you'll have to replace them. So the bolts holding on the middle bell, they're a little shorter. The ones on the outside are a little longer just because these run all the way through to hold 2 bells on, whereas these just hold a single bell. So that's pretty much it. I was going to say on an old cast P horn, P3, gull wing manifold, there's a small difference between the manifold with old cast and new cast. Old cast horn, it says pat pinned, and there's no tag. On a new cast P horn, it does not say pat pinned. It actually just has a tag. So if you see a manifold that has a tag on it, it's a new cast era manifold. There's really no difference in construction on the manifold, and it doesn't really matter, but period correct speaking, this is a proper old cast manifold. So next, let's get one of these bells opened up and check out the internals. Okay, so all you're going to need to get the back cap off of a P-horn, in this case, is a flathead screwdriver. Some of the screws are Phillips, some may even need a socket. Most are going to be a flathead or Phillips though, whereas these are flathead. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop. All right, we got those off. So when you take this off, you got your back cap. That's what it looks like on the inside. Pretty simple, just a sand cast back cap. Your internals look like this. Now this is a double diaphragm setup. A lot of your P-horns, well, some of your P-horns can have single diaphragm, some have double. I want to say all the new casts have double. I think that's correct. Anyway, so on the inside, your nozzle or your seat on a P-horn is rubber. It's a rubber seat, rubber nozzle. Some people call it a nozzle, some call it a seat. I think the proper term is a seat. You also have a retainer spring that holds a nozzle on. These nozzles are pretty tough. I've only ever had to replace a couple, and I've had a lot of P-horns, but you can get them fairly easy. So your diaphragm, the way it's set up is, I see a lot of people get this wrong, and the horn won't work if you get it wrong. So you've got a thin rubber gasket. The thin gasket goes first. Okay, thin gasket first. Then, if you're gonna run a double diaphragm setup, okay, you'll have a diaphragm, and then you'll have your thick gasket. You put it on. Now, this horn will blow. It's ready to go. You can put the cap on and bolt it up and go. All right, or you can add a second diaphragm. Now, what that does is, if you put a second diaphragm on, the horn's gonna be louder. If you go with a single diaphragm setup, it's gonna be more of a mellow tone, mellow sound. So double diaphragm, more of a harsh sound. It's going to be louder. Single, more mellow. It's not going to be as loud. Still going to be really loud. Now, I believe this is correct. I believe with a double diaphragm setup, you're going to use less air. With a single, you're going to use more air. I'm pretty sure that's correct. So that's pretty much it for the internals on a P-horn. I mean, they're pretty straightforward and simple, as most all the horns are. P-horns, they're sand cast. Your K-horns are die cast, with some exceptions. Some of your older K-horns are sand cast, and your Canadian horns are sand cast. But all your P-horns are sand cast, even the new ones. So that's pretty much it on a P-horn. So we'll get this thing back together and we'll go give her a honk, let you hear what it sounds like. All right, guys, we got it back together. Before we go give it a honk, I had one more thing to show y'all. Whenever I get a new horn in and I put it together, I always put a coating of this on the nuts, on the bolts and screws. It's called Jet Lube. It's a zinc dust petroleum anti-seize compound. This stuff works great. You can get it on Amazon, I think even eBay. I think you can find it on eBay. It's not very expensive, but man, this really makes taking horns apart easy, especially if you put them up under a truck. After they sit for a couple years on that truck, you can have some trouble getting these bolts out. So put this on, it'll really help you out in the future and keep you from having any seized nuts or bolts. So let's get out there and honk it.